now to share his expertise, we are joined by Johnny Rungtusanatham, Canadian Research Chair in Supply Chain Management and Professor of Operations Management and Information Systems at the Schulich School of Business. Professor Rungtusanatham, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate it. So for our viewers, some people really just have no familiarity, or their industry or their work does not engage in a supply chain. So what is a supply chain?
So I'm going to define this from the consumer, the average consumer perspective. We walk in a store and we buy a product, for example, my cell phone, right? Now, we normally don't think about what are all the different players, parts, people, companies involved in actually getting this phone to be available for me to purchase at a store. But when you think about the product itself, there are probably many, many different companies, many different manufacturing entities, transportation companies that actually help us move parts, materials, components, systems, and to a point where it gets assembled and then ultimately delivered to the store where I am able to buy the product physically, or to an online store where I can order the product. So when we talk about supply chain, it is the network of players, transportation companies, manufacturing companies that all work hopefully in a synchronized manner to create that product that I am able to find in the store.
Okay, and what is the current state of the supply chain? Of course, we've seen with various industries, they've been so deeply impacted. Yes, we've all seen those images of those ships outside, those cargo ships just outside of Los Angeles port waiting to be unloaded. What is the current state?
So everything that we buy has a supply chain. The issue is whether it's a very long supply chain or a very short. Something could be made just next door to me, right? And that's the supply chain. It's just a very short supply chain. Well, because we trade globally, and I talk about Canada, okay, our supply chains are very long. In the past 20 years, we've also been on a push for efficiency, which means that we look for ways to reduce costs. And oftentimes that means reducing, surplus capacity or reducing, surplus inventory, what we call safety stock. And so supply chains have been stretched, okay? And COVID-19 really just exposed the fragility of the supply chains that even before COVID-19 was under stress.
So it was already under stress. So with COVID, what are we seeing? We have about 30 seconds before commercial. What kind of impacts are we seeing, say, because of COVID?
Unavailability of components, parts, semiconductor chip, and
Right.
we saw that. People not being able to work means that we're not able to produce as much as we normally would. And so we're seeing delays, right? In terms of goods being made available at specific points in that network to allow us to produce as planned.